melt in their coffin, considering that half the planet is freezing, considering that most of the time when they talk about the Arctic ice increasing, it actually is increasing. So where is the global warming if the Arctic ice is increasing and getting thicker? What they do not subscribe to is the fact that the planet itself does have its own natural cycles, that the solar system does have its own natural cycles that are interplayed with everything else, and we are also seeing all the planets of our solar system changing and being affected. There's a new red spot on Jupiter. There are massive storms on Saturn. There are things happening all over every single one of the planets. I even read that Venus itself is slowing down. So there's changes to these planets that we've never seen before. And of course, we are at the very start of science opening up these things by observing a lot more that happens to our world. But what can you tell me about these changes that are happening? Surely, driving your SUV in downtown Montana cannot have an effect on the storms that we're seeing on Jupiter. Surely.
Well, I started to briefly touch on some of the conditions in space and the solar activity, but I wanted to address the climate issue first. So I kind of breezed past all that. In our deep solar minimum, I'm not an expert or an authority, and I struggle to find information just like most people do. I may have better sources than some people do, but apparently our sun has gone into what physicists are calling a grand solar minimum, while they are expecting a maximum at the same time. It was only 2, 3, 4 weeks ago that NASA predicted that the sun would wildly swing again towards solar maximum, and activity did pick up somewhat, but I believe that was due to comet activity. The activity in our solar system in the last decade has just been phenomenal. I was always told that it's a vacuum, it's uneventful, not much happens up there, not happen up there actually because it's non-electrical, so on and so forth. But we have all noticed multiple changes in the last decade. If it be due to better scientific instrumentation, more people watching it, maybe a little bit of both, but we have noticed that Venus has slowed in its orbit and become what they call the Ashton Lights, which just means it's a fancy term for it's dragging a tail behind it, like the Earth. It kind of looks like a comet from a distance. We were told in the last 5 years that the core of Jupiter seems to be descending or falling apart or something along those lines. They don't know how long, but they just discovered that. We knew that there were annual storms around the first week of July every year, and this is believed to be outgoing and returning solar currents from the sun, if you're in the electrical universe theory, which I am, which cause large ammonia storms on the surface of Saturn first week of July. Well, here I think it was 2010. It erupted on July the 4th. It not only erupted on schedule where and when they thought it would happen, but it enveloped the entire planet or solar body. It's a minor sun is what Saturn is. So it turned white because of the ammonia storms and stayed that way for quite some time. Know that I track the Earth, Moon, Sun declinations in Julian time, and I noticed that we were losing time to the Sun due to the large earthquakes that we started having between 2004 and 2010. We had fallen almost 8 minutes behind the Sun, and recently we have made up most of that time. They have actually been resetting the atomic clock January the 1st every year for the last 4 years. So yes, conditions in space are changing. I can't tell you exactly what they are. Personally, I feel that this has to do with energy bleeding off of the galactic, the Milky Way galaxy that ebb out in every direction. 360 degrees. That this is always happening, and like waves in the ocean, some are larger, some are smaller, and now we're able to watch them, and I call them the Ibex wave because of the International Boundary Explorer, the Chandra, the Fermi 2, the High Energy Stereoscopic Survey, and a multitude of these institutions and observatories coming together and laying out one map in one program, trying to define the galactic plane, which they have done so very well. But now they are able to see these waves of energy, and they're in the spectrum of photons, X-rays, microwaves, gamma waves, radio, the whole spectrum of light. Therefore, you really cannot see them coming in these waves, and some are stronger than others. And I'm under the personal belief, this is not a scientific fact, that our solar system is being affected from outside our solar system by the galactic plane, or the Milky Way galaxy energies emanating off. There's no real evidence of large objects or heavy mass objects in the vicinity of our solar system. Look at Jupiter and Saturn would be our first indicator. 17 moons of Jupiter, I believe, 23 in Saturn, plus the 60 plus NASA spacecraft we have out there, and none of them are being disturbed, being caught in gravity welds, being blasted out of their trajectories or orbits by the heavy gravities of these like a dual binary star circling far beyond our Oort cloud. These things are still speculative, and there are no internal things happening in the solar system that will indicate that something's very close to us, coming close to us, or near to us, or on its way. But one thing that we have noticed is a stream of debris coming through our solar system, what they're calling dirty space. Minute gases, dusts, sands, granules of material, some of them the size of your fist, maybe larger, and the overpresence, I believe, I'm going to call it an overpresence of comets in our solar system in the last decade. I can remember, being interested in astronomy all my life, and maybe 1, 2, 3 comets would come through our solar system, known comets, through our solar system every year. And now we're up there where we have over a dozen of them right now today. More than 12 comets in our solar system, active in our solar system. Comet Elenin has returned. It's not, and it's on its way in, it's on the out, but has erupted a coma as large as the size of Jupiter, and it's still in our solar system. Approximately, what I believe it was 4 to 5 AU behind Jupiter on its way out when it erupted. This is inexplicable, and I've never heard of anything like this. I know that Comet ISON just went behind Mercury yesterday or the day before, and it had been glowing green because of the electrical field in charge through its coma actually turned blue. And the red shifting and all the instrumentation that we get all of a sudden just went completely berserk. They're still working that out. But a lot of changes up there, but there's no one thing that you can point your finger at and say, that's the culprit.
Also, you're very, very correct in saying that there's a lot more things happening these days, and that is also quite very evident in the amount of fireballs that are coming into our atmosphere, that are falling down to Earth, that we're seeing in the skies. We saw the amazing, the massive meteor that exploded over the Russian town of Chelyabinsk. We are seeing these things more and more often just lately. Do you consider that this is actually a part of what they call this dirty space that you contend with? And also, one further question. Is this kind of research being done by anyone else? I know you've had words with both Mark McCandlish and Professor Jim McCanney. Do they subscribe to this particular type of research, that we are, in fact, seeing a lot more extra galactic matter coming into Earth? Very, very interesting question.
You know, I can't honestly answer that question. And no, I've never had words with Mark McCandlish or James McCanney. We've had discussions. We've never had anything heated. And I think that both gentlemen are on board with the electrical universe theory and the activity in our solar system, but I've never actually directly asked either one of them that question, so I'm not going to presume to answer for them.
Have you yourself ever tracked anything coming into our Earth here, Earthplay? I know a lot of people talk about Elenin and this comet and that comet, the brown dwarf. We were supposed to see Nibiru in 2005. That never was established. Have you ever tracked anything yourself?
No, actually, and I'm ashamed to say that I have not ever tracked anything. The best that I can claim is that I've seen the mountain ridges of the moon. I've seen Mars and Saturn and Jupiter. Very spectacular. Very first time that you see Saturn or Jupiter, you're just beside yourself. The first object that I've ever been able to observe is comet 2012 S1, known as ISON, from the International Space Optical Network here in New Mexico, where some Russians discovered that comet coming in. I actually got to see it on the morning of the 11th, the 12th, from here in New Mexico, low on the horizon at about 4:15 a.m. East-northeast was the first time that I've ever physically, myself, with my own telescope, tracked one of these objects or saw one. So I'm pretty excited about that, and I did that with my binoculars. So that's the first object that I've ever watched come in, and right now we can't see it as it goes around the back of the sun.
Mr. Earthplay, sir, why do you think it is that there's so much bullshit that is purported by the mainstream media whenever the topic of climate change comes up or the topic of global warming pops up? Why do you think there is so much bullshit that is put out by the mainstream media to try and convince these people? You said earlier that there is an agenda, but why is it mainstream media are playing this agenda? Why are they not being objective as reporters and media are supposed to be? Why do you think that is?
Again, I'm going to have to answer this from a personal perspective. The reason that they get away with it is because there's not enough information available to the American people through our own scientific institutions and academia.